Hey everyone, there'll be a proper edition of Three Beers Deep going up later tonight, but I wanted to share a couple of thoughts on the unexpected and tragic passing of Nintendo president and CEO Satoru Iwata. I never had the pleasure of meeting or talking with the man, but I did have the pleasure of playing the games that he was responsible for ushering into existence. I had the pleasure of being someone who got to cover a large part of his tenure. A lot of his work being in charge of Nintendo coincided with a lot of my rise in writing and reporting on video games. And the thing I've always said about Nintendo, and it's been especially true during Satoru Iwata's leadership of the company, is that you never counted him out. I feel like that was always what people said about Nintendo. Said even when they're backed into a corner, they're going to do something surprising, and they sucker punched the world with the combo of the DS and the Wii. But what I always appreciated about him, and I think this is partially informed by the fact that he started as a developer and then became an executive, and then you have folks like Shigeru Miyamoto, who was a designer and became an executive, whereas Miyamoto tries to shy away from some of the business aspects of it, and I think has actively said he would really never want Iwata's role. We'll see how things change in the future, but that there was a humbleness to Iwata. He came from the trenches. He came from game development. He understood games, and he just seemed so not cynical. He was someone that even when Nintendo made the wrong moves, even when they were swerving in a direction that maybe scratched my head, and when they were frustrating to watch because they didn't get X, Y, and Z, and why don't they just do A, B, and C, I always thought they were genuine. I always thought that Iwata's approach, his thoughtfulness, his analysis, his explanation always struck me as someone who was thoughtful and interesting and engaged. And that came across so much so in his Nintendo Directs, in his press conferences, in the Iwata Asks. He did, and it's weird to say did, because it is very much now in the past tense. He has passed, and it's not what he's going to do or was doing, or I guess it is in some ways was doing, but what he did was he humanized a company. He was the CEO of a corporation. We live in a time in which companies like Electronic Arts regularly find themselves on the 100 worst companies in America and stuff like that. Big businesses and corporations are constantly used as a rallying point in sort of a political debates. Like they're used as a big evil crutch, and there's all sorts of reasons to potentially dislike corporations and stuff like that. I'm not trying to discount some of those conversations, but what I thought was interesting was that in today's world, Nintendo always felt human, and I feel like a lot of that was the direct result of Satoru Iwata. I was constantly personally jealous of Iwata Asks because, well, it's possible he's just a more talented interviewer than me, but he had unprecedented access, and not just that he had access. He was friends with all of these people, or at least a lot of these people. At least that's what it came across of when you read the Iwata Asks interviews, in which he was just personal. He knew these people. He cared. He knew the history of the development. He knew the questions to ask because he had made games before. And the fact that a CEO of a game company, a major game company, was doing that on a regular basis, not because he had to. I don't think there weren't ads on Nintendo's website. They weren't making anything from that. He did that because he wanted to do it. And I think that's why Nintendo has always had such a passionate following. Maybe you've grown out of Nintendo's style of games. Maybe they stopped making the types of games that you wanted. But I thought, Iwata and Miyamoto, especially as partners, created this place that just seemed like they cared about games. And I think, you look at what happened with the unveiling of the Xbox One and this sort of like cynical nature in which a TV media box is made by a bunch of executives, a bunch of ulterior motives. And yeah, it was sort of about games, but it didn't feel that way. And that was expressed in the hardware and the pitch and everything. And even when Nintendo, like I said, was doing things that frustrated people, what happened all the time, it always seemed to come from a place. They were genuine, right? And so being genuine means that sometimes you're going to get it wrong. Maybe you're going to get it wrong a lot of the times. But I always looked forward to what Satoru Iwata had to say. I always was curious how he was looking at the industry. And if you read his interviews from just months ago, he still had a positive outlook. Maybe he was being a bald-faced liar in the same way that Steve Jobs was up until his equally untimely death, in which you have to save face as part. That's what you do as part of a company, being the public face of a huge corporation. Is you say, "Oh, I'm fine. I've lost some weight, but I'm getting better." And he was forced to do that because that's what he had to say to stop the stock from tanking. And if that's true, that's tragic. I wish we could have known. I wish we could have prepared ourselves. I feel like we're starting to get to that age where the video game industry is going to start losing titans. And Satoru Iwata was certainly one of those. He is someone that, even when I was critical of Nintendo, as we all are, we were critical because we cared. And part of the reason that we cared was because Satoru Iwata came across as a genuine, humble, interesting, passionate human being that wanted nothing more than to make amazing video games, to delight the world, to make them happy. And I have to say, he accomplished his mission. He made hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of really fun video games that I will never forget. And it's my great hope that legacy will continue on at Nintendo. But regardless of what the future brings, what he did in his time there is something that I truly appreciate. And as someone that has experienced personal loss myself, my condolences and thoughts go to the family and friends and the people that knew him, the people that worked for him, that were so loyal to him and loved him and appreciated him in a different way than all of us. But nonetheless, I think right now we can all share in our appreciation for what he did, what he has left to the rest of us, which is a legacy of amazing video games, of heartfelt passion, and just wanting to have fun. So thank you, Mr. Iwata. My condolences to your friends and family. And that's it.